We have a roll call. Certainly. Member Rouse? Here. Member Gutierrez?
Here.
And Chair Sneddon?
Here. Thank you. And today we're considering proposed municipal code amendments pertaining to park closing times, park playgrounds and aquatic facilities, portable grills and stoves, and off-leash dog areas. Do we have any public comment for items not on the agenda?
We do not, Chair.
Okay, thank you. So with that, we'll have a staff report.
Chair Sneddon and council members, committee members, Jill Zachary, Parks and Recreation Director, and I have with me Rich Hanna, Assistant Parks and Recreation Director, and then also Robin Lewis, Assistant City Attorney, and Michelle Kostanuk, who's our analyst in the department. So a number of people have been working on the recommendations that we're presenting to you today. And what we'd like to do is walk through those proposed amendments, the process by which we are making the recommendations, and then ask you to give us your comments and hopefully forward them to the City Council. So specifically, we are proposing amending one section of Title 15 related to recreation parks, beaches, parks, chapters of the Municipal Code, adding a couple of sections related to children designated playgrounds and aquatic facilities, adding a section related to portable grills and stoves, and then also adding a section in the code related to dogs off leash, which is in a separate section of the municipal code. So one of the things we always turn to when we're looking at how our parks and our recreation facilities and our beaches operate is what's our mission? And in Santa Barbara, like many parks and recreation departments, our mission is to provide diverse open space, parks, beaches, recreation, and community services. We want them to be safe, clean, usable, and we want to have stewardship of our natural resources. Santa Barbara is blessed with 60 different parks and recreation facilities that range from neighborhood parks, community parks, passive parks, sports facilities, and the buildings that we have. As a department, we actively manage a lot of these areas, whether they're landscapes or turf, playgrounds, restrooms, pools, playing courts like tennis courts, and picnic areas. In recent years, increasingly, as we've reported to our Parks and Recreation Commission and to City Council, we are facing a number of different park system conditions that give us concern related to misuse and vandalism, illegal activity. We have public perception and experience with conditions that are unsafe. And then we have impacts to our department staff that have to manage our infrastructure and our resources, conduct cleanups, make lots of repairs. And then ultimately, for the city and for the operation of our department, it's resulted in lost revenue and decreased program participation. Taking these things into consideration, coupled with many other activities that we have underway to enhance use of our parks, to do other things to make our parks the best they can be for the community, we spent some time looking at our municipal code, since it really guides us on our rules and procedures and how changes to the code could enable us to improve park management and maintenance, enhance safety, discourage misuse, and then ultimately support productive community use in our parks. The first area that we'd like to present to the committee relates to park hours. Currently, Title 15 calls for park properties to be closed to the public at 10 p.m. and remain closed until sunrise the following day, with some specific exceptions. So specifically, which is hard to know because each park has to be posted in a certain way, we have 12 parks, 7 sports facilities, and 3 community gardens that are posted as sunrise to 1/2 hour after sunset. And then we have 38 other parks that are sunrise to 10 p.m. and gives you some examples of those parks. I would note that the 10 p.m., harking back to the 50s and 60s, communities use parks in a very different way than they use them today. And I think part of what we're looking at and considering is how are our parks used today and how should we best manage and regulate them to enhance their use for everybody during daylight hours and discourage use when the sun's gone down. So our proposed park hours, we're proposing consistent hours across the board. As I mentioned in an earlier slide, it'll allow us to have consistent park management and efficient use of resources. So when we close and open areas, we have parks where we have gates that we close now because it's one of our ways to let the public know that it's not a place for the public to be after a certain time. By addressing our park hours, we intend and hope that we will reduce some of the misuse activities, particularly in the areas where we have more problems. It also gives us a tool, gives the city a tool, the police department a tool to enhance safety through any enforcement that they may need to take if they receive complaints regarding activities in a park after hours. And then lastly, looking around to other communities in Santa Barbara County, also looking to the south of us, increasingly what we see across the board is sunrise to sunset. And that enables people to move between counties and areas to have a general sense of when it's okay to be in a public place. So with that, our proposed hours are that all parks shall be open sunrise to sunset, except by permit. The draft amendments in the municipal code also indicate that the hours would be defined by the National Weather Service. Anybody can look that up if there's ever a query. The exceptions are places like sports fields where we have facility rentals, or when there's a special event or a known community event such as the 4th of July where everybody's out everywhere and having fun, and that's what we want them to do. Because we have permitted activities in those sports fields. We have lights to support those permitted activities. We know people are in the parks doing something, and we have a procedure and staff in place that are aware of and can monitor that. We have 3 exceptions that we're proposing: Hilda Ray Park, Franceschi Park, and Schofield Park. These are parks where we actually have a caretaker house. And for simplicity's sake, for 7 days a week, park hours, because during the week, Monday through Friday, the park staff person that lives in that caretaker house is responsible for the gates, both opening and closing. And then on the weekends, it could depend on which staff member is on staff to go open those gates. So we wanted to make sure we could ensure those parks were definitely open at 8 o'clock. I'd like to also turn to some of our recommendations related to playgrounds and aquatic facilities. In our park system, we have 22 playgrounds in a variety of park settings. We also have 2 pools that serve children, one at Oak Park and the other one at Ortega Park. These areas are designed for children ages 2 to 5 and 5 to 7. The purpose of playgrounds, as we've all watched children play, is it gives them opportunities for unstructured play. It supports their physical, intellectual, and social development as they interact with each other as children. And it's really intended for children. Our play areas are not sized. The equipment's not sized and rated for adults. We have lots of other park areas for adults to recreate. In order to maximize the usability of our equipment, reduce wear and tear, increase the longevity of the equipment, and support safe play conditions, the department's also proposing that we provide for the exclusive designated children playgrounds and aquatic facilities. And specifically, the recommendation in the municipal code would be that the Parks and Recreation Director can designate areas and equipment for exclusive use by children. It would be posted with signage, and that adult access would be limited if that adult was not accompanied by a minor child. A minor being defined as 12 years and under, adult 18 years and older. Persons 13 years and older with disabilities may be accompanied by an adult. And our rationale there is that we're currently actually working on an all-inclusive playground design for Dwight Murphy Field. And there are people of all abilities that we want to be able to attract there. And generally, people with disabilities would be accompanied by an adult or another caregiver. Current barbecue amenities in parks. We have 14 parks with 66 individual barbecue standalone units and 5 group barbecue sites. Over the years, we have removed barbecues as a result of misuse or fire concerns, particularly in high fire hazard areas. And at the same time, we've never really looked closely at the fact that we don't have any rules or standards regarding portable barbecues and campstones in city parks. Increasingly, we find People move in and have large groups and bring in their own barbecues and might use them in any number of locations within a park, which can have misuse issues, create noise, creates parking impacts, creates other issues related to trash that we would like to find a way to manage in a way that still provides the public with the opportunity to take their portable barbecue and go be in a defined picnic area and enjoy a picnic with their friends and family. So the proposed section for barbecues and stoves would allow them in defined picnic areas except by permit. And that except by permit relates to, for example, and sometimes in Shoreline Park, Lower Shoreline Park, someone may permit the grassy area and have a party there. And so we would know they were there and it would be okay, permitted for them to bring in a portable barbecue. In other situations where there isn't a set number of picnic tables, for example, we do permit areas for people to have a private party. So that would allow that to continue to occur. We would also require that the barbecues be standalone, enclosed, self-contained units 6 inches off of service. So if you imagine one of those portable Weber grills, that's what we're talking about. Part of the rationale behind that is it reduces the potential for damage to our park benches, to our park picnic tables, because sometimes we have barbecue fires there, which we'd rather not have. Also, we want to be sure that anything that's brought in is contained and gets removed off-site. Increasingly, as we find groups of people moving in to have picnics and barbecues in areas that are not dedicated for that purpose, they leave behind things that then give us more work to do the following day for cleanup, or could create a hazard for other park users. And then lastly, barbecues are currently prohibited at Parma Park, high fire hazard area. We have a group picnic area there, so we want to be able to establish that in that area specifically, even though it is a designated picnic area, we would not permit barbecues or camp stoves. Then lastly, this is an amendment proposed for section 6.08.20 related to off-leash dog areas in city parks and beaches. We recently opened our brand new fenced off-leash area at Mackenzie Park. It's already well loved and much appreciated by the community. In order to be consistent with the municipal code, we do need to add it, and so that's the proposal before you today. And just as a note, the other areas that are currently covered in that section relate to the Douglas Family Preserve, Hale Park, and then the beach, which is, I should actually have said west of Arroyo Burro and east of Arroyo Burro and west of Shoreline Park. No, I did get that right. So with that, the staff recommendations for your consideration are that we amend section 15.16.260 related to park closing times, that we add a section 15.16.265 related to exclusive use, children playgrounds and aquatic facilities, that we add 15.16.270 related to portable grills and stoves, and we amend section 6.08.20 related to off-leash dog areas. Pending Ordinance Committee review and consideration, we would like to take this to City Council for review and action, and implementation would occur through a citywide park signage program, which we're currently in development, as well as a number of other community outreach initiatives to get the word out. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Zachary. Do we have any questions at this point from the committee? Councilmember Gutierrez?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the report. When it comes to the updating the children's parks, are we, or is that potentially violating somebody's civil right of being able to visit a park if they don't have a child with them?
Thank you. The city has the right to use reasonable restrictions on the use of the parks, and as long as there is a reasonable basis, which I think is articulated in the report, that should satisfy the First Amendment considerations. There's also due process issues, and what satisfies that requirement is the posting. We'll have to make sure that the signage clearly designates who can be there.
Thank you. And Councilmember Rouse?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Zachary, do we have, I'm going to the nose disposal of coals or fuel section. Do we have any of those specified concrete boxes that you see in some places? And if so, are those allowed for that? I just don't know what somebody does with their barbecue once they're done with the barbecue and they're going home.
Chair Sneddon and Councilmember Rouse, we do have those in certain areas, particularly in larger group picnic areas. Increasingly, we're finding some people use coals, or they use wood, or they use actual propane gas for a portable barbecue. See that trend continuing.
But they would be able to deposit their coals in those receptacles.
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
And then I have a question to, well, first, thank you for being so responsive to what we've been asking for safety in the parks and for looking into these and for coming back so quickly with them. So thank you. I just have it's maybe a very specific question that doesn't really apply, but for the ages, I'm just, for the slide that says proposed section in municipal code for the limiting adult access if not accompanied by a minor child. It's such a specific question, but I have a 16-year-old son and an 11-year-old daughter. Can they go to the park together under these ages? I just had that. We have defined adults and then we have defined children, minors, and it was just a minor question that I thought, well, where does he fit in there?
Chair Sneddon, it's a very good question. The new section does not prohibit persons older than 12 or younger than 18 from being in the parks that are designated exclusive. And your 11-year-old would be allowed in the park, but not required to be accompanied by anyone. The section does not require children to be accompanied by adults, but merely prohibits adults from being in these parks if they're not accompanying what is defined as a child, which is someone who's reached the age of 12. Excuse me.
Okay, thank you. I know it was a very specific question, but I just thought I would ask there. Do we have any public comment? We have no public commenters, so it is to the committee to discuss if needed. Councilmember Gutierrez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I understand and appreciate and respect all these updated proposed ordinances, but I do have some reservations because being someone who grew up in an area where we were very crammed into our living quarters, we needed areas to go out and just be outside of our dense living situations. And some of my fondest memories is being at parks after the sunset and looking at the stars and so on and so forth. But I do understand also the flip side of that, because I have seen a lot of negative activity in the parks after sunset as well. So I'm going to support it, but know that I have my reservations about it as well. Yeah, just that being said.
Thank you. And Councilmember Rouse?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, I too appreciate these amendments. I know that our parks are a really valuable resource, and sometimes they're not used all the way like they should. I know at Shoreline Park, there's always neighbor concerns. I get a comment, every day when I go down there about somebody doing something they don't think is part of the rules. So, and while I realize there won't be constant surveillance and patrols there, I appreciate the parameters and having an understanding for the public what is and what isn't kosher. So with that being said, I'm going to move staff recommendation.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. And then I will add a few comments also. First, I really appreciate the Mackenzie Park, dog park. I've taken my dog there, and we've enjoyed it immensely, so thank you. And I did notice that there were people who had their dogs off-leash outside of the area, running around, and so I think it will be helpful to have the signage that this is the off-leash part in here and not out in the rest of the park. And Councilmember Gutierrez, I share your concerns. I also have I grew up in an urban environment and also have a lot of fond evening memories of being in parks, but then I've also seen some of criminal activity in the parks also, and I'm going to trust that in those evening hours that we aren't, unless there's a problem and things are being called in, that we're not going to have park police everywhere, but we're going to have the parameters set as you suggested. So I really appreciate those comments and share your concerns with that. I think the consistency will be helpful in the one site where if people have an inquiry about what time is sunset on every given day, I really appreciate that there's one place to go to find that out. And so if there aren't any more comments, I think we're ready to take a vote. Councilmember Gutierrez? Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh,
Ms.
no, I'm just turning my mic on.
Oh, okay, Ms. Gorman,
Sorry.
we're ready.
Member Rouse?
Aye.
Member Gutierrez?
Yes.
And Chair Sneddon?
Yes. So that passes unanimously on to council, and thank you. We are
Thank you.
adjourned.